Hello, this video is an introduction to the SAT, otherwise known as a guide to the most fun experience of your high school years. The SAT test lasts just under 4 hours and is made up of 10 sections. These 10 sections are made up of 3 different general topics: reading, math, and writing. All of the sections are multiple choice except for the essay, which is always the first section on the test and lasts 25 minutes. Also, half of one of the math sections consists of free response questions rather than multiple choice questions. On each test, there is one section that is actually not counted for your score. This is known as the experimental section and is used by the College Board to gather data about certain types of questions and how students answer them. The problem for you is that you won't know which section it is, so it's not even worth your time to think about it. Do each section as though it is essential to your score. A couple things need to be clarified before you really begin your studies for the SAT. These are super important, and honestly, you probably already realize most of them, but they bear repeating here. The SAT is in no way a measure of intelligence, potential, or capacity for success, either in college or in your life beyond college. This test is a very specific type of game that plays by its own rules. It's similar to school, but different. Simply put, just because you get good grades in school, you can't expect to ace the SAT without any preparation. However, if you learn the tricks, study the strategy, and spend time getting familiar with the SAT itself, you'll do great. So, how is this thing scored? This is a source of a lot of confusion from test takers. For each correct answer that you have on the test, you will get 1 point. For each incorrect answer, you will be docked 1/4 of a point. In other words, each incorrect answer is worth negative 1/4 of a point. There happen to be 5 answer choices for every question. What that means for you is that if you randomly guess throughout the whole test, the mathematics behind the scoring system means your score shouldn't go up or down. Therefore, the deduction for wrong answers is not really a penalty as is commonly thought, but rather a type of balance. Again, if you guess throughout the entire test, it shouldn't increase or decrease your score. Let's have a look at what this means for your strategy. A lot of people are confused about whether or not to guess on this test. In short, you should guess, but do it in the right way. If you can't eliminate any answers, guessing shouldn't help or hurt you, as I noted a second ago. However, if you can eliminate even one answer, the mathematics of the scoring system are in your favor. Therefore, if you can eliminate one, you should guess. A more realistic goal, however, is try to eliminate at least 2 answers on every question. And if you can eliminate 2, you're in very good shape. You should definitely guess at that point. So, here's the all-important question. Why is this test seemingly so difficult? Well, simply put, the SAT is a unique task. As I noted a second ago, it's like school, but different. It plays by its own rules, has specific strategies and techniques that are helpful, and these are not the kinds of things that you've learned in school. Therefore, again, SAT scores are not very well correlated with grades in school. As you watch more of my videos and start to study this stuff a little more thoroughly, you'll realize I'm a fan of super dorky analogies, but here's one for you. Let's say you're an amazing football player on your school's football team. Does that mean that you'll also be great at lacrosse the first time you pick up a stick and hit the lacrosse field? Not really. I mean, because you're an athletic football player, you've developed some athleticism and some agility and some sports sense that will help you on the lacrosse pitch. However, if you don't know the rules, penalties, strategies, and specific skills required for lacrosse, you really won't be good until you learn them. This is the same type of thing for school and the SAT. You've been in school your whole life and learned a lot of really important information. This has helped you learn how to think and problem solve in very important ways. However, until you learn the rules, strategies, and effective techniques for the SAT, these things won't help you too much. Once you do learn how to break down the SAT through specific strategy, and once you learn the rules of how this thing functions, everything you've learned in school will help you to master the test. All right, going on. The SAT is more of a tricky test than it is difficult. For example, in the math section, the hardest concepts are geometry and algebra 1. For most high school students, these things are things that they've studied and know fairly well. And for many students, geometry and algebra 1 are topics that they haven't seen for a year or two. That means that this can be difficult for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you've taken geometry 2 years ago, it's probably rusty. So a lot of students have difficulty remembering older concepts on the SAT. Time management can also be a big issue for a lot of students as they are uncomfortable completing difficult sections under time pressure. And the last reason the SAT is difficult is that it is super tricky. Let's look a little bit further into that. Except for some hard vocabulary words, the material covered on this test is not that difficult, but it is very tricky. Therefore, the biggest thing you can do to help your score on the SAT is simplify the questions. If you're able to sort of translate them and tell yourself what the question really means and what is really at stake, you'll do a lot better. In other words, many SAT questions are written to be very wordy, confusing, and overly complex when they don't need to be. Simplify them, figure out what the real question is, and you're sure to do better. One simple way to sum up my whole philosophy on the SAT is that you should keep your pencil moving. Try to avoid those moments when you're just sitting there trying to figure out any of these questions. Rather, get busy, start doing something, write something down, draw a picture for geometry questions. This is a doing test, not a thinking test. The more your pencil is moving, the better you will do. Finally, here's one example of a math question that embodies a number of the things I mentioned earlier in this video. Let's have a look. This is kind of the classic SAT style math question. Number 20. If Johnny traveled from point A to point B at an average speed of 30 miles per hour and back to point A from point B at an average speed of 60 miles per hour, what was his average speed for the entire round trip? So looking at these answers real quick, just think of the first guess that pops into your mind. I don't want you to try to solve this. Don't grab your calculator. Just think of your answer. Well, if you're like most people, you guessed answer C, 45, because it is halfway between 30 and 60, and we're looking for an average. That makes pretty good sense, but it's wrong. You wouldn't have known this at first, but this is a number 20 question. And as you continue to study for this test, you'll realize that math sections are out of 20 questions at a maximum and that they go in order of difficulty. Simply put, a number 20 should be one of the hardest math questions on the entire test. And what you'll realize soon is that easy answers are usually incorrect for really hard questions. The SAT test creators know this, and they always include easy answers like 45 on this question to try to throw you off the track of the right answer. In other words, the SAT creators love to create bait answers that look really good when they're wrong. On the other side of things, the SAT creators love to hide the right answer and draw your attention away from those answers that are actually correct. With a little bit of strategy and a little familiarity, we'll be able to recognize and fight through all of these tricks. So let's go back to our example question. We've already gotten rid of answer C because it's too easy for one of the hardest math questions on the test. We also know that answers A and E cannot be correct. These are the two endpoints of Johnny's speeds. Therefore, if we're looking for the average, neither 30 nor 60 will fit the bill. So we're down to answer B, 40 miles per hour, and answer D, 50 miles per hour. Ask yourself this: should the answer be closer to 30, the slower speed, or 60, the faster speed? Well, slower speeds take more time, and if we're looking for an average speed, it should be closer to the slower one. Therefore, our answer is B, 40 miles per hour. Now, just to be clear, this is not magic. There is math going on behind this question. But what we just did is a very good example of how you can start to break down this test if you think about it in the right way. We took very basic knowledge of how the test is set up, namely that a number 20 question is supposed to be really hard and that really hard questions don't have easy answers. We took that knowledge and combined it with some basic rational problem solving skills to get the right answer on a really hard question. This is a very early and interesting example of how strategy and knowledge of the test itself can help you get a better score. So, to sum it up, thanks for sticking with me. Here's our basic conclusion. With solid knowledge of the test, we can see inside the minds of the test makers, and the more familiar you are with the way that they think, the better you'll do. You'll be able to anticipate and predict and adapt to all of the tricks that the test makers throw at you. So get familiar and comfortable with the test and logically think your way through it. The more time you spend with this material, the more you see inside the minds of the people who create it, and the more you're able to logically break down the tricks that they present us. So, long story short, you don't have to be a genius to ace the SAT. Just spend some time getting comfortable with the test, spend a little bit of time and energy figuring out the tricks behind it, use strategy, logic, and problem-solving skills, and before you know it, you'll be an SAT master. Thanks for watching.